And welcome to another edition of Hoops Hitting Gems podcast. I'm your host, David Jones. Want to thank everybody for coming on and checking us out as usual. Episode number 3 in season 4, overall number 95. We're getting closer to number 100. As we said, we'll have a special show when we get to episode 100. But tonight is no different. We got another great show as usual with another quality coach. And, I always talk about I watch every level, D1, D2, D3, NAI, JUCO. And, you guys get to know these coaches and you'll see the quality of coaches on every level. And tonight is no different. I'd like to welcome everybody to the podcast. Coach Drew Richards, who I've been a fan of and I've been watching for, over 4 or 5 years now and watch him transcend and do what he's been doing. And, as the head coach of UNC Pembroke, and for people that don't know, that's the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. They're a D2 out of the Conference of Carolinas. And, I just wanted to bring him on the show to talk about his program. How you doing today, Coach?
Good, David. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, man, my pleasure. As we know, I got to see you guys play last night against a very good Lander team. And, man, you guys look good. And, as we were talking backstage, the scarier part is, you got some guys that are down and like you said, you guys are just starting. Some of them are just starting to play together for the first time. And I was like, what I saw yesterday, I was like, oh, man, if that's the case, because I tweeted out about it last night. I was like, that guard play is really good, really good. And, what I saw, and you said, your 6'11" was out. And I was like, yeah, UNC Pembroke can make some big noise this year. And, that's why I said, hey, man, can I bring you on for people that don't know how good your team is? And, you agreed to come on and I thank you for that. But, man, let's jump right into this. For people that don't know, tell them about UNC Pembroke.
So, University of North Carolina Pembroke, we were founded in 1887. If we're going to go back that far, we were founded originally as the Croatan Normal School, and it was actually a school designed to teach Native American women how to become in-classroom instructors. So there is a deep-seated Native American influence in the institution, as that's how it was originally founded. And so obviously the university has grown over the years. It was Pembroke State at one point, and then, we changed our name to University of North Carolina Pembroke. And, the university itself has grown a crazy amount. I mean, when I first got out here in 2014, we had around 5,000 students, and now we've grown to just a shade under 8,000 students. I think the last time we checked, we were the largest Division II in North and South Carolina. So it's a really great institution as far as still getting a very intimate academic attention, getting academic detail. I mean, the class sizes are still small enough at 12 to 14 students per one faculty member that you feel like you're at a small institution. But then also it's big enough school that there's football, there's tailgating, there's people that you're going to see, there's campus activities every day. The campus is a big, beautiful campus. So I think we really hit a nice mark as a quote unquote small college, but also in a lot of ways, we're a bigger institution.
And, for people that don't understand, what type of majors, like for these guys that are interested in more than just athletics, what type of majors that are popular at UNC Pembroke?
So, yeah, we're obviously we're in the UNC system. So we always say, like, any degree from UNC Pembroke isn't necessarily just from UNC Pembroke. It's from the University of North Carolina system. So we're able to have a lot of different degree paths, ones that our players specifically look for. We have a great school of business that opened up 2 or 3 years ago. It's a $40 million $40 million building. It is amazing. I would challenge everybody to Google it or come see it on campus, because I would stack that school of business up to anybody in the region. So that's become a very popular major. We have communications. We actually have nursing. We're actually just building a school of optometry that'll be open in the next couple of years. We really have, for the most part, any degree path that anyone would go for because of the size of school and because of being in that system. We actually have an engineering degree that you take 3 years at UNC Pembroke and you take 2 years at NC State. It's a partnership, and then you graduate with dual majors in engineering. from both institutions. So, I mean, our chancellor, Robin Cummings, Dr. Cummings, has been phenomenal since he's been here because he's really grown the brand of UNC Pembroke and grown multiple options as far as degree paths and educational career pathways. So he's been phenomenal. So it's really great to be able to talk to recruits and their parents, and they tell you maybe a pretty obscure degree path, and you're like, you know what, we have that, or we have a way to get to that. And so the options are almost endless.
And for people that are not familiar, you guys play in the Conference of Carolinas, which is another quality D2 conference that, sometimes people aren't familiar with. Let's talk about the Conference of Carolinas.
Yeah, I mean, we jumped in Conference Carolinas back in 2020. So when I was the associate coach at UNC Pembroke, we were in the Peach Belt Conference, which people in your area are probably a lot more familiar with Columbus State, Clayton State, all around that area. But once we kind of, what I understand happened, because the year I left for Lander was the year that the Conference Carolinas thing really started hitting. They kind of looked at proximity to different contests and schools. We were the only school in North Carolina, and it was a drive. I mean, Flagler's 8 hours, Columbus State, Clayton State, that isn't just a spring hopping away. Yeah. So once they looked at that and the geographical nature of what we could do differently, Conference Carolinas came up, and it's a very progressive league. I think Chris Colvin, the commissioner, is very aggressive in attaining not only sports, but other schools and other ideas. He's very open to communication. He's involved in a lot of the stuff going on at the NCAA Division II level. So when we came in 2020, I feel like the growth from 2020 to now has been amazing. I mean, we've added Young Harris from the Peach Belt. We've added Francis Marion. We're continuing to add quality schools and increase our footprint. And the basketball has just gotten better every single year. I mean, last year we got 2 bids to the NCAA tournament. Year we getting 2 bids consistently. And I think we're start knocking on that door of getting a third bid into the NCAA tournament. I mean, around your guys' area, a school like Emmanuel University, a guy like KJ Jones who's literally playing for the Nets right now. We had to face him for the last 3 years. Thank goodness he's gone. But I mean, that's the quality of basketball you get in this league. So we've been really happy with it. I mean, it's competitive night in, night out. And I think it's just gotten better and better since we've been in.
And I'm glad you mentioned, that's why I brought up the Conference of the Carolinas. Yes, people are familiar with the Peach Belt in this area, but this whole Southeast, there's so many good D2 schools that people don't know about. And, I'm a fixture at the D2, conference in Southeast Regionals for the tournament. Yep. And people have no idea. Like you said, you mentioned KJ Jones. I mean, very good friend of the show as well. Like, people don't understand, like, he came to Emmanuel with no offers, and look what he did, because to me, D2 was more about that development, into that player. Like, sometimes you could be a KJ Jones, or you could be that D1 drop down that is a better fit in D2. And that doesn't guarantee, I'm coming from D1, I'm going to start and put up 30. No, these conferences, the Conference Carolina, Peach Belt, and the rest of these conferences right in the Southeast, no, the Gulf South, those are very good conferences where people need to understand, no, this is by no means a walk in the park. And what you guys showed last night, I was like, ooh, okay. I was like, Coach Richards up there doing a little something I didn't know about. And, we both talked about it when we were texting last night, like, Omar's a great coach. He always has a quality team. His team was in the tournament last year. And, like I said, you guys ran out on him. And I was like, okay. And when you get that type of victory, for people that are true basketball heads, that catches attention. I'm like, what's going on at Pembroke? They must got a pretty good team. And I wanted to talk about the team you have this year. So tell us about the team that you have, man.
Yeah, I mean, back to what you said, Omar's doing a phenomenal job at Lander. I mean, I remember, obviously whenever I went back to Pembroke and I remember his name being up for that job, I was like, he would do – as much as I didn't really have any pull when I left, but as much as I could say, like, hey, if you guys are going to hire somebody, this is going to be the guy. And, man, he's done a phenomenal job. So, and they're going to be really good this year. There's no question they've done it the last 2 years. He'll be really good this year. So, and the Bearcats are going to be on the up and up. There's no question they've done great. Our team this year, like I told you before, I mean, it's it's been a unique situation, as a head coach going into my 5th year. I've been pretty lucky not dealing with a ton of injuries, and it's not necessarily like excuses to why you struggle at times with the injuries. It's more like getting your team synchronized, getting your team to mesh. And when players go down with injuries, it's not necessarily the points or the rebounds or the assists. It really boils down to like what their role was and then how to divvy out that role. And you've got to adjust other players' impacts on the game, because we know some guys that weren't going to shoot a lot, we might need you to shoot more. Or some guys that were going to handle, we might need you to handle more, or we need you to play 10 more minutes per game. So there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it, not just saying out with injuries. So that's something we've been dealing with a couple guys out for the year with injuries that we're going to be impactful, starters or high minute guys, and trying to adjust everyone else's role in our team to fit and try to find that success. And it evolves over the year, but I really think our team's starting to, take hold of that and be able to get more synchronized in our role. So, last night obviously was, we've had a really rough start to the season because we played, it's got to be arguably the toughest schedule probably in the country. I mean, we played 2 top 25 teams in Ferris State and West Texas A&M, and then we went and played USC Aiken, who has won the Peach Belt last year, and they are very, Coach Vanderslice and one of my former players from Lander, TJ Knight, who's the assistant down there, they do a phenomenal job as well. So they were really, really good. So, as much as, going into this season pre-injury, we really felt like we were going to hit the ground running and everybody knew what they were doing. Once those injuries kind of came through, it's like, okay, now we've got to adjust what, maybe in a little bit style of play. What do we do? Offensively, we might need to shoot a little threes more because we don't have as impactful guys that can get to the paint. Or, we need this guy to play more. We need him to do that. So that's been it's been an adjustment for both coaches and players. So hopefully last night was the first step in the right direction of getting it a little bit more consistent in what we need to be successful.
And to your point, that combination of, was it Bradley High School and Dallas Gardner? Oh, they lit it up last night. If I'm not mistaken, they went for, between both of them, a combination of almost 50 points.
Yeah. I mean, Brad's been, Brad is in his 4th year. He's a 4th-year senior, which this day and age, that's a rarity to have a 4th-year senior at this point, sadly. But and Brad and I have had our moments. I mean, he's been a fixture in our lineup, but there is times when he's inconsistent at times. And I think last night was the thing I was most proud about Brad last night is he has phenomenal court vision. I know people saw the scoring last night, but do people see the 5 assists that he had? That's the kind of impact he can have because he's a phenomenal defender. And then he also can find teammates. When he's looking, he can find them. And so we've been pushing Brad over the course of his career to really start taking shot, not necessarily taking any shot, but higher shot percentage shots. And I thought last night he did a really good job with that, except for a couple occasions, and then getting his teammates the ball. So pleased with that because that's we always talk about contagious selflessness. If you're contagious, it's going to spread. Just like selfishness contains, so does selflessness. So, and then Dallas Gardner. I mean, Dallas Gardner has one mode, and that's hard as Hades. I mean, that's all he knows how to do. So Dallas, I mean, that's the way he played in high school. Obviously, he's worked a lot. I come into high school, he was really not known to have a great jump shot, and he's really worked his tail. I mean, we're talking about 6 a.m., 5 days a week, getting in the gym and getting shots up. He is truly dedicated to his craft. And so last year, we were going down the stretch of the season. We got a really, really short rotation going into the conference tournament, and Dallas was literally the only guard off the bench. And he had some huge minutes in the conference tournament for where we won the championship. And so we thought that he would pick up kind of where he left off. And obviously, like I said, his role's kind of modified a little bit from what we thought originally at the start of the year. And he's going to have, we told him, you're going to have a bigger role than we thought because 2 guys are out that play around your position. And he's really taking heed to that. So I know we're going to have our ups and downs with Dallas because he's just a sophomore. But, man, there's times when you look out there and you see what he does and his motor and his toughness and his energy. We call it smart energy. We want him to bring smart energy to the court. And he's just on another level.
And I'm glad you said that because, in this day and age, you brought up a great point that, it is rare to see somebody that's had a program, and it's sad to say, 4 years because, with the portal, with JUCO, and then, people just sometimes transfer out as well. You want to have that mixture, you see a lot of the philosophy now for college basketball is to be successful. You had to go older, But like when we were talking backstage, you said to your point is you think you've experimented with both, and now you feel like it's a mixture that's the key.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've gotten to a point yet. Like I told you before, like it's like, 1 year you're like, gosh, we got to get all transfers, and you all transfers. And you're like, well, gosh, I really wish we had some high school kids. And so it's really finding a balance that fits the program best. I mean, I think the thing that a lot of people forget when it comes to transfers this day and age is once you get past a certain level, high major, mid-major transfer, a lot of transfers have a hard time adjusting to a new place. I mean, we used to talk about it takes at least a semester for a transfer really to adjust to what a team's doing typically, consistently, that is. Mm-hmm. So, because I mean, you can either take a talented high school freshman that's never really been taught how to guard a ball screen, or you can take a transfer that's been taught 3 different ways to guard a ball screen, and now you're trying to break 3 different habits compared to 1 habit or no habits for the high school kid, and that's absolutely true. So, it's really a crapshoot a lot of times between high schools and transfers, but I don't think you can overload on either direction. There's enough good quality high school kids out there that you're able to take ones that can be impactful, that can contribute what you need. Maybe not all league, but contribute what you need as a freshman. And then there's also sometimes when you're like, look, we have 0 wings coming back. We got to find a transfer in here that can come in that we think can play right away. And so I think you've definitely got to I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where all transfers, all high schools, but we used to just do mostly high schools with a little bit of transfer, but we've evolved to about half and half is what our goal is.
And let me ask you this, and I'm glad we're talking this. When you're out, whether it's JUCO or if you're looking at transfers or you're looking at high school, what do you look at that says that's a UNC Pembroke guy?
A lot of it's positionally. So like for guards, the first thing we look at is ability to facilitate and guard. For every position, it's competing and playing hard. It's just the way we do our substitutions, the way we do our preseason. If you don't play hard and you can't, willing or able to defend, if you're not willing or able to defend, you won't play here. And I tell recruits that all the time. Just before you even think about Pembroke, understand if you don't do those things, you will never play here. So I don't want to, it's not even, let's get past this. But that for guards, we really want guys that can facilitate and make their teammates better. One thing we've always kind of, I know it's kind of, and based on what you probably watched last night, you're going to think I'm crazy, but we actually have always looked away from shooting. Typically, we usually go, okay, we need tough guards that can defend and that can facilitate, make their teammates better, maybe throw in a 3 occasionally. And then we want our wings to be bigger, longer, athletic, high motor guys that can get downhill and get to the cup, rebound, defend, and then throw in a 3 occasionally. And then we really need typically skilled forwards, guys that can score inside, that can score. You saw last night we had guys that scored inside, guys that made threes. We got to have guys that have the ability to have feel to pass and dribble and stuff like that. So there are caveats that we have that, like, okay, we'll take like Dallas Gardner, for example. He wasn't recruited as much out of high school because he didn't shoot great out of high school. Well, if you take a kid like Dallas Gardner, my belief is part of our job is to help him become a better shooter. I can't teach him to be tougher. I can't teach you to play hard. That's something that comes inside of you. That's how you play. I can't teach you to have effort, compete. That's just inside of you. However, my job is we can make you a better offensive player. We can tighten your handle a little bit. We can make you a better shooter. Those are the things that are skill oriented that we can work with over the course of your career. But ultimately, your heart deep inside, and if you're competitive and stuff like that, that's the stuff we try to look for and at least check off the first couple boxes.
Okay. And is there anything? And I always like to ask this question because a lot of coaches want to know. Is there something that can make you just say, "Oh, cross him off" when you're evaluating a kid? And I'm not saying why he's not good enough. Are there any intangibles that say, that's not something I'm looking for there?
There's a couple things. Volume scoring. I'm not interested in guys that take 20 shots and shoot 40% from the floor. And if you're averaging 20 points per game, but you're shooting 40% from the floor and you're averaging 1 assist and 1 rebound, that's not good for us. We want, like, for our prototypical best stat line for a point guard, I mean, points range. Like we've recruited guys that average 8 points in high school that end up being phenomenal players for us. We're not really worried about that, but it's the certain amount of points plus 5 or 6 rebounds plus 5 or 6 assists. There was a kid named Micah Kinsey actually out of Brookwood High School in Atlanta that people were afraid to recruit because he couldn't shoot great. Well, a kid was averaging 12 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, 6 steals. I mean, just insane numbers. And
that's nothing.
Yeah, and he ended up being a phenomenal player. He won multiple championships. I mean, Micah was huge for us. But the things that we just do not, I mean, if a kid doesn't play hard, we're out. I mean, it's a non-negotiable. Effort is a non-negotiable. That's one. So I've used this story with our staff before. So I went and traveled to I'm not going to give names here. I don't want to, call anybody out, but I went to a high school to watch a kid play. And I noticed while I'm watching him, he ends up, after every free throw, his teammates always give each other 5s, but when he's shooting a free throw, nobody gives him a 5. Nobody even acknowledges him after he makes a free throw. And so I'm kind of watching this, and I noticed they don't really give him a high five, and he kind of does some different stuff towards his teammates that kind of makes it seem like he doesn't really have a good relationship with them. So I went up to the high school coach after the game, and I said, hey, is there a rift between his teammates and him? He's like, yeah, they don't really see eye to eye. And I was like, with any of his teammates? And he's like, no. And I'm like, we're not going to recruit that kid. Like, there's no way all your teammates should hate you in high school. Like, that's usually when you're the closest with your teammates. So that is definitely a red flag. We didn't recruit that kid at all. He ended up having a fine career at a different institution. But that's not a kid that would fit in with UNCP.
That's interesting you said that, because that's off the court that a lot of time people don't even know coaches pay attention to. And one of my big sayings, when I'm talking or, I'm just out there, I tell people, you never know when people are watching, whether a coach is there, whether it's a friend of a coach, you have no idea who is in the stands, who may just come through practice, or just what have you, may come and see you in school, just in the hallways. And like you say, some of those small intangibles, coaches are relationship based a good portion of the time. And they say, hey, one of my wife's good friends is a teacher at that school.
Yep.
That's one of the ways when you're recruiting that guy, hey, how is he as a student? How is he as a person? Yep. And when you get those type of reports, you're like, oh, no, I can't have that. That'll kill my team,
Yep.
And this is the way you live. So you have to be on point a good portion of the time. We all know nobody's 100%. You may miss sometimes on some kids that you thought. But in the grand scheme of things, you want to be to the point where you know what you want, you know what you feel is going to be, even if you miss out on a kid, because if you feel like he's not a culture kid, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even going back to, your point of what we're looking at, we've had several instances where we've stopped recruiting kids because of how their parents acted during games.
Wow. Boy, I'm going to clip that one there.
No, it's absolutely true. I mean, so I'll give you a comparison. So there was a kid we were recruiting, watching his game. I loved his game. He was a perfect fit for us. During the game, he gets hit in the face with an elbow, gets knocked down, blood goes everywhere. The first thing I look at is his parents. I want to see what their reaction is, and they sit there and they're calm and they're waiting and they're collective. The kid gets helped up. He goes out. They wait. He comes back in. They go down. He checks. They're fine. They go up in the stands. He gets back in the game and he plays. That kid ended up being over 1,000 point scorer in college. He's playing professionally to this day. Phenomenal kid, phenomenal parents. Same year, go to watch another kid. Okay. Kid gets in a little bit of a tussle. Mom runs down on the floor, and I kid you not, parades around the floor, running around the floor, screaming at the officials, the other team. Her son gets a technical. I mean, it is a show. And so we just said, okay, we're out. We're not recruiting that kid. Because if that's the surface, if that's what she's willing to do in front of us, gosh only knows what would happen outside of it. So we stopped recruiting that kid entirely. So and it was in the same year. It was pretty nuts how that worked out. But, it just shows the contrast. Like, we're watching that. And if we don't think it's something that we can handle, and some coaches might say, hey, I love the passion of the mom. It all depends on the coach's personal perspective. But that's just for us. That was definitely a non-starter.
Let me ask this, and I just want to jump back into this so people understand about UNC Pembroke. What is the requirements to get accepted, GPA-wise? What are you guys looking for?
So, UNCP is actually in a part of North Carolina that's a lower income, lower educational area. So we're actually very accepting in students. And one, so like students typically coming from uh, lower socioeconomic backgrounds that don't have a ton of education. We've had a lot of student athletes and students that are first time college graduates. We've had student athletes that are first time out of high school from their families. Which to me just makes it even more special that we're able to have them and they're able to graduate. So, but typically entrance, I mean, anywhere around a 2.5, somewhere like that. I think a regular student is 2.8, 2.5 to 2.8, where there are exceptions to that sometimes. And I think, I don't know what's going on with the testing. The testing went away. And then, now it's like you have to take the test, but it doesn't matter what you get. I mean, that's all, evolving. But as of right now, this year, the testing was unnecessary to get in. So, but like I said, to me, it's I think, and it's no knock on private school or anything like that, but or higher educational or higher GPA acceptance schools. But to me, it's like we're really trying to change lives. And if we change lives, you find that kid and maybe he barely gets into college, but we have the ability at UNC Pembroke to give him safety nets. We have writing labs. We have tutors that are for free for every student that you can get on Zoom with a tutor if you're away at if you have a game the next day, you can get on Zoom with the tutor and go over your math homework. Like the way we set it up at UNC Pembroke is we really provide the avenue for anybody with a small or big academic background to be able to get through classes, to have professors that understand, that put in the extra mile, and then to be able to walk across the stage with a degree, which is ultimately the most important thing.
And then I like that. And so what's a typical day at UNC Pembroke during the season? Do you have morning practice, afternoon practice? How does it work at Pembroke on a typical day?
So typically what we do is like we'll get up in the morning. Obviously, we'll do class checks in the morning. During the day, our guys get what are called vitamins in, which vitamin is about a 30 to 40-minute offensive workout with their positional coach. So, and by workout, we mean maybe catch and shoot threes, maybe just working on your handles, maybe just working on your right hook, your left hook, your face up. It's a very specific part of your game that we're trying to work on for 30 or 40 minutes during the day. And this is in between classes. This is in between. It's just to come in, just get a some quick work in. So they do that during the day. Typically we practice. Right now we practice around 2:00. If we have a game coming up, we usually do scout and film around 2:00. And then we get on the court and we're able to, go through practice, go through scout, all that. And then depending on how far the game is away, like today we lifted today after practice. And then that's usually it for the day. We have study hall at night, depending on what your academic level is. We let guys with higher GPAs get out of study hall. Guys that have lower GPAs are required to get a certain amount of study hall hours. But that's typically the day, a typical day. Now, one of the things we've always had at UNCP, because we emphasize rebounding so much, is if we get out rebounded, we get up the next morning at 6 a.m. and we have a not so nice practice. And so, like you said, typical. That is very untypical, I hope, in the future, but that's something we've always emphasized here.
Okay. And I like that. And so, if that game is not good, and like you said, you're looking at the stats and you're like, oh, we've been out rebounded by 15 or 20. They know automatically what it is the next day because that's effort. And like you said, you're big on effort. And if you're not giving the effort as a team, sure, somebody can have an off night. That happens. But as a team collectively, you're holding them accountable to be like, hey, somebody got to pick it up to give us the inspiration that we need.
Yep. We've led the nation 2 of the last 3 years in rebound margin, and we were second in the nation that 1 year we didn't lead them. So, it's a constant emphasis at us. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like my boss that I work for at UNCP, he said the way you can gauge toughness and effort is like, it's hard to make it an intangible number, but rebounding to me is that signifier. It signifies if we're really sticking our nose in there, if we're being physical. And so that's something we've always emphasized. Now, if we ever get rebounded by 20, it might be 2 days in a row of 6 a.m. practice. That'd be totally unacceptable. But they know, that's how our guys understand every day. If it's some situation like that, it's not something they ever want to have to go through.
And, as you said, you've had success there. You've won, you've had a great overall record at UNCP. And, even at your other stop, you had a great record. What do you think that is that leads to that success?
I think it's, the best advice. I mean, I was really lucky when I was at UNCP. I worked for Ben Miller, who was at Kansas under Roy Williams. I was at Kansas under Bill Self. And then I worked with Eldon Miller, who was the head coach at Ohio State, Western Michigan, Northern Iowa. So, I mean, I literally got to work for two of the best guys, coaches, that anyone could ask for on a daily basis for 5 years. So, the best advice I got from them is, when you're figuring out your style, because I think you have to have an identity, you have to have a style. Like, how do you want to be known? When someone walks in your practice, in the first 30 minutes, they should know what you emphasize and what is important to you. But they said, how are you willing to lose? Is the first thing they said to me. Well, how are you willing to lose? Because once you figure out how you're willing to lose, if you lose this way, then you could sleep at night. Build your defense, build your offense from there. And so that was the first thing we figured out, is what we were willing to accept to lose. And then from there, we kind of built it out. But I think it's that continuing emphasis, them knowing, not being a gray area about what you're trying to accomplish every single day in practice, every single games. This is what we're trying to achieve. We have 3 goals we try to achieve every single game. And I'm pretty sure we're like 99% success rate if we achieve all 3 goals. And so they know going into every game, these are the 3 things we want to accomplish. And if we go for 3, like we did a couple times this year, we won't win, because that's not who we are. This is our identity. This is who we are. And if we do that, if we buy into that, if we're consistent with those actions, then that will breed the most success.
And I just thought about this as we're talking. Does UNCP offer graduate programs?
Yeah, we have great graduate schools. I mean, right now we have a graduate transfer. We've had a graduate transfer, I think, every year since I've been back. Okay. And so something we're able to do is actually, especially if they're a graduate in business, is we're actually able to get them an internship, help them achieve an internship through our entrepreneurship hub. We have a hub that businesses at UNCP, so UNCP graduates can actually utilize it for little or no cost, but it's office space and community space that businesses that aren't able to afford a brick and mortar, they can actually utilize that space to grow their business until they can afford it. And what our players do is they actually help them grow their business. They're in there doing marketing plans and promotions and doing all these other things that help. So not only are players that graduate, especially in business, not only are they playing basketball, but they're also able to get the other side of things, the academic, the business, that they're actually able to learn and grow in that as well. So it's a great deal, that we're able to provide for any type of graduate students. We have other graduate majors, but a majority of the ones we get are typically in business.
And then that leads right into my next question. So, a lot of guys, when their playing career is done, they may want to get into coaching. Is there an opportunity to come to UNCP, whether it's a former player or not, as a grad assistant on your staff?
Yeah, I mean, we have. So, I'm always big on moving guys up if possible. So, like this year, our graduate assistant was our director of player development last year. He's been our director of player development for 2 years, and now he's a graduate assistant on our staff. We actually brought back one of our former players. His name was David Struther. He played for us he was at our program for 4 years. Finished his career at another institution, got into coaching. We brought him back as well. So yeah, we've always, I always think, just like my predecessor, he's big on former players because they know the standard. They know what's required. They know what you're going to demand of them. They're not going to lose their mind if you get mad and yell, because they've seen it all. So they understand that too. So we're big on trying to keep guys around that are really, that work hard, that want to learn, that want to keep getting better. We want to keep those guys in our program. So yeah, we have opportunities for GA. We only have one GA spot typically, but yeah, we try to keep those guys around, and then GAs to assistant coaches to, second to third to top, whatever. We try to move those guys up and keep those in our program.
Man, I'm glad you're saying this, because, I always talk culture. Of course we talk program, and then we talk culture as well. But one of the bigger things that, I like to ask this, and I ask this all the time: why UNCP? And this is your time right here. I love to ask that, and for parents, when you're walking into their living room or you're having those Zoom calls, why UNCP over the rest of these schools?
Yeah, like I kind of hit on earlier, I think the differences between UNCP and a lot of places are, one is the size of the institution, and to me, go, and this is just personal preference, but I think going sometimes to smaller colleges feels like you're at a big high school. And so to me, going to an institution like UNCP where you get the small college academic attention and you're able to go tailgate a football game and go these different things with all this campus and 8,000 students, I think it makes you feel like you're at a big time institution. I think the power of the university's roots in the community is also extremely rare. The Native American foundations, and then us being, we're actually statistically the most diverse institution in the Southeast region. We're like a true pie graph of different races and ethnicities and religions. And I think it's very similar to what you're going to see in the real world. And so I'm very proud of our diversity and people being able to come into the institution and see people from different walks of life and different backgrounds, and being able to interact with those people in class and in the cafeteria and at games and things. And then the passion for basketball. I mean, I've worked at 2 other Division II institutions, and I've worked at other institutions at junior college level. I played at a Division I level. And I can say the passion for basketball at UNC Pembroke is unlike I've ever seen. I mean, people truly care about the institution here. I mean, they have their family, their grandfathers, their great-grandfathers all went to UNCP, and they all live and die by UNC Pembroke and UNC Pembroke basketball most of the time. And so we have incredible booster support. We have incredible, proud alumni support. I mean, we have an alumni game every year, and we have anywhere from 50 to 60 to 70 guys that come back just to come to our basketball game for a weekend. They're that passionate about it. And we've been top 30 in the country in attendance in last year we were top 30 in the nation in attendance per game. And that's coming from a town of 3,000 people. So It tells you when our guys are getting invited to birthday parties or they're signing autographs in Walmart, they really are treated like superstars around here. And I think being able to have that, along with the success of the program. I mean, I luckily Coach Miller built it before me, but being able to go to 8 NCAA tournaments in the last 10 seasons, 7 championships in the last 9 seasons. I mean, it's just hard to find that consistency of success. That was kind of my goal when I took over is don't sink the boat, just keep the boat afloat. And that's what we've been trying to do.
And my last question, I always love to bring this up, and this is for people that don't know. And I like to bring it up, and you can expound a little more on this. There are a number of players, not just from Conference of Carolinas, Peach Belt, Gulf South, and all these conferences in the Southeast that end up playing professional. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been pretty lucky. I mean, I was lucky enough to play professionally overseas. I played in Germany, and I think we keep a running list. And I want to say our current staff is either recruited, developed, or coached around 40 players that have gone on to play professionally at this point. And I'd put those numbers up to anybody. I mean, one year we had, I think, 4 guys off our team go play professionally in some capacity or another. We've had guys that played in the G League for the Raptors 905 team. We got guys in Germany and Israel right now. And the one thing that I hear from agents when I talk to them about different guys is they want to see players come from successful programs. One, that's extremely important. And they want to see players that impact the game in multiple ways. Like we talked about earlier in our recruiting, they don't want the guy. I think one of my old teammates from Missouri State was an assistant with the Memphis Grizzlies. He used to coach Ja Morant. And he's like, you could throw a dart and hit a guy that could average 20 points per game, but you can't throw a dart and hit a guy that can rebound, that can defend, that's a great teammate, that's positive energy. It's hard to find those guys. And so that's what we try to emphasize in our players and our recruiting is how can you impact winning in other ways outside of scoring? We know you can score, but if you're not scoring, if it's your off night, if you're not making shots, what else can you do to help our team win? And that's what professional scouts are looking for. I mean, the guy that played for the Raptors 905 team, he is still to this day the all-time leading rebounder in Peach Belt Conference history. And he's still making money in Israel right now. It had nothing to do with his points. It had everything to do with his blocks, with his steals, with his energy, with his effort, all that stuff. So, I think if anybody has dreams and aspirations of going and playing professionally, and I don't care if it's low major. I mean, obviously you get to the mid-major, high major ranks, but anyway, low major level to Division II. I mean, we've been able to get guys over there that have had won championships, graduated with their degrees, and go over and play professionally. That's kind of the dream, and that's what any basketball player in college wants, is to be able to play professionally, graduate, and win championships and go to NCAA tournaments. And so we've been able to provide that avenue for players, and we're going to still try to continue on build on that list and add names to that list.
Listen, hey man, I love it. You were lights out, man. I thank you so much for coming on the show. You gave a plethora of really good tidbits, and there's a reason why UNCP is what it is, and that starts with you, man. I mean, congratulations on the win yesterday, and good luck on the rest of the season, man. I'm going to try and catch you guys again, and it was it was by luck I caught you yesterday, and I was like, oh man, oh, Drew's here, okay, oh man, okay. But no, you guys are doing some good things up there, and I like what I see, man. You keep doing what you're doing, man, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Sounds good. Appreciate you, David. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man. You take care and have a good one, okay?
All right. See you.
All right. Man, listen, if you guys don't listen to at least some of what he said, he basically gave you a pathway of how to be successful on the D2, D3, because all of this translates on every level of college basketball. And again, you guys that are volume scorers, don't get me wrong, some of you are very talented, but you got to bring more to the table than just being a scorer, because some of these players get exposed when, oh yeah, you know, on a great night, yeah, you can light it up, but you're giving it right back on defense because you can't get a stop. You're not passionate about blocking out. You don't get your teammates involved. And then they start to just watch, and we like to call it taking pictures of what you're doing because you don't have them involved, so you're not a good team player. And there are a lot of coaches that will shy away from that. And I'm glad he brought those points up. Listen, that's going to do it for tonight. I love, the way he talked and the points he brought up. I thought it was great. Listen, this is episode 95. Like I said, I can't wait for 100. We're going to have a really good show for that. Next week, we're going to be back on Sundays as usual, but because I was at a game yesterday, I had it today. But we're going to keep doing this, and we're going to keep spreading this good information that coaches give out. And we want people just to understand it's bigger than basketball. I mean, don't get me wrong. Basketball is a team game. We want you to be successful, but we want you to be successful in life as well. And that means so much to see people make it past just 4 years and actually graduate. So we'll see you all next Sunday as usual. Everybody have a good week. I'm your host, David Jones. Good night.